this is National Preparedness Month, and one of the things you need to be prepared for, people forget it was only, 5 years ago that, we were wondering where we were going to come up with our next roll of toilet paper. But, we've got all that now. We've resolved most of the issues with the supply chain, but you can never tell when it's going to happen again. Mathias Rieske with the Emergency Manager for White Pine County, those are always problems we have to deal with in everyday life because, we're out here in the middle of nowhere. I mean, a lot of people are prepared here. We have a couple of churches, and of course the Ministerial Association Food Bank is very well prepared. But if we have a massive breakdown, unless every one of us takes care of this stuff, we're going to be stuck.
Exactly. And to follow the meme culture, right? Winter is coming. That's one of the things we need to think about is if that winter storm that hits our mountain passes is stronger than we think, some of those semis might be delayed a day or two. And so the store might not get restocked as fast as we're used to.
People forget it was 75 years ago when we had the big hay lift here. Mm-hmm. When the farmers had to, they ended up bringing in hay because they couldn't get hay to the cattle. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have the ability, so you've got to be prepared, and you can't depend on somebody coming and dropping in food here. If we're in trouble, we're not going to be the only ones if we get that big kind of snowstorms and stuff.
Well, the other thing is, if food does have to come from outside, it may not be what you're used to eating. I lived in Florida for quite a while, and after hurricanes, they would pass out, Army would pass out MREs, and they'll fill you up, but it's not what you're used to. And if you've got small kids that aren't used to eating things like that, or you have special dietary needs, then you might be hungry for a while. So instead, I'm trying to encourage everybody to have a minimum 1 week of shelf-stable food in your home. And the easiest way to do that is look at the meals that you already eat. And I don't know about you, I know my family, we typically go through about 7 to 10 meals that are kind of our go-tos that are our household staples.
Yeah.
But how many of those things... my mom was from the Midwest, and for me growing up, everything was casseroles. And how many of those things were just canned soup or canned vegetables with maybe a little bit of meat, but you can have some canned meat. You could have, like the canned chicken or a tuna casserole or something, and you can make that from shelf-stable food and keep up with what you're used to, maybe with a couple of substitutions.
I do a program, a podcast, Classic Radio Theater, and that on that Classic Radio Theater, we play a lot of those old commercials from the old days when they were concerned about bomb dropping. They said 2-week food supply. Stuff that doesn't necessarily need preparation. Mm-hmm. And that's still not a bad thing to have considering, because what happens if we get in a situation out here where not only are we having issues with the supply chain, but what happens if our friends at Mount Wheeler Power, and I know that they're good about making sure we're pretty sound, but what happens if their supplies get cut off? We never hurts to make sure you have all of that backup stuff.
Exactly. And the other thing that we have to think about now is cyber attacks.
Yes.
Just a few months ago, I believe it was Visa didn't work because they had been hit by a cyber attack, and so your Visa card didn't work at the grocery store. So if you didn't have cash or another brand of credit card, you weren't able to get your groceries.
You got to have cash on hand for these sort of situations. What happens if the internet goes down? You look at what happened to the state of Nevada. We had another, and I haven't talked about it in the news because it doesn't really affect us, but Boyd Gaming got hit with another cyber attack, and it's affected them, but we don't know how that's going to impact customers. They haven't said a word about it. But the thing is that we need to be prepared, not just with our cards. I always try to keep at least $100 cash on me at all times, and the main reason for that is what happens if I get somewhere where we're stuck.
Yeah, and that's another great tip is, and maybe not quite $100, but having at least $20 on you in cash will get you a meal most places. It will get you enough gas to get you through the night if you're having to camp in your car, or to get to the next town where maybe things are functioning a little bit better.
Mathias Rieske with White Pine Emergency Manager. This is stuff you need to be prepared on, and this is stuff that if you don't think about it now, especially if you're going on the road. That's why I always keep $100, because I never can tell when I'm on the road. I might need some extra cash, because you never can tell when the internet's going to go out, and that's who processes everything these days. Yeah.